Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Virtual College Exploration for All Illinois Students, a program of the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling, powered by StriveScan. To all of our participants, thank you for joining us. How do you ask questions? Please use the Q&A button. Your chat is turned off, so you communicate with our presenters with the Q&A. Your camera and microphone are off, you're muted, your video is off, we cannot see or hear you. There are many more sessions in addition to this, so please check out the schedule at IACAC.org. A recording of this session and all sessions will be available following the session. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our presenters for students with disabilities transitioning to college.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Welch. We are going to get started here on our slides. Okay. So again, as was explained, this presentation is about students with disabilities transitioning to college. Such a very pertinent and important topic that we hope you all will enjoy and get a lot of knowledge from, but also ask questions about either your situation or just general questions that you may have, either for college in general or even our specific institutions. First, I'm going to have us all introduce ourselves. So if you ladies want to turn your microphones on, I'll go ahead and start though. My name is Amy Switulski. I use she, her pronouns. I serve as a non-resident admissions counselor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and I am also our liaison to our Center for Students with Disabilities. And Kelsey, since you're at the top of the list, we'll have you go next.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Foote. I also use she, her pronouns. I am from Michigan State University. I am a specialist in our Disability Services Center called the Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities.
Hi, I'm Lynn Gallagher from Loras College. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the Lynch Learning Center, which is the center on campus that provides any support for students, faculty, or staff that have any disability.
Great, thank you both. So just to give you a lay of the land, we are going to discuss various topics regarding that transition, whether it's about your academic living accommodations that you may utilize while in college. We're going to talk specifically about our institutions themselves, and then wrap things up and give you those how-tos or next steps on going to college. But first, we'll start things off with hearing from Lynn.
Okay, well, thank you. It's great to be here with Amy and Kelsey, and thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about the differences in the laws that protect students with disabilities, both in high school and in college. So you may be used to right now the IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which provides for educational opportunities for students in the K-12 system. But once you graduate from high school and you go on to college, a different law is going to provide protections for you, and that's the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. Specifically, there are two sections, 504 and 508, that will provide some accommodations for you. So the difference between high school and college is that in high school, we need to find the best ways for you to learn, whereas in college, we need to provide access, so equal access to the education. The ADA itself provides access not only in education, but also in employment. So as you get a job, different accommodations you might need in employment, in public services. So you may see things like doorways that might be wider, or curb cuts, or things like that. Public accommodations when you stay in hotels, telecommunications if you need any sort of assistance with hearing. There are a lot of accommodations, miscellaneous provisions. There's a lot of different ways in college that you're going to be provided with accommodations. They're not all cut and dried. It depends on your situation, and it depends on your actual diagnosis. One other thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about accommodations, that they're not really based on what your diagnosis is, but rather how that diagnosis impacts your learning and living. So you may have 2 or 3 students who have the same diagnosis, but they don't necessarily have the same accommodations. And can we go to the next slide? Okay, so the differences between high school and college. Cost, number one, a K-12 schooling is free if you're in a public school system, whereas in college, there's tuition, there are fees, there's housing, there's meals. Attendance. Typically in high school, you have to attend class or you're marked truant. There are ways to assist you with keeping track of homework and turning in homework, assisting you with things like that. Whereas in college, sometimes professors don't take attendance at all. Sometimes you can have a class where you're able to do a lot of the work on your own. And right now, in the situation we're in now, where a lot of classes are in a hybrid situation or completely online, we're finding a lot more students are using those types of accommodations. They're using some of the classes in an online format as opposed to attending in person. So depending on your situation, it might actually be more beneficial the way things are now. In college, nobody checks your homework really. They may check to see if it's turned in, but they're not going to correct it. Day to day, this is the biggest difference between high school and college. Typically, students will arrive at high school, maybe 7:30 in the morning, and then your day is set. You have classes, you have lunch, you might have study hall or something like that, and then at the end of the day, you leave and you go home. In college, it's not like that. There's a lot of unstructured time. You may have about 15 hours of credit classes during the week, which means you're only in class 15 hours of the week. So you've got a lot of time on your hands. You've got about another 25 hours just in the basic 8 to 5 day. So you really need to figure out how you're going to spend some of that free time. Again, class time in high school, 6 to 8 hours a day, you're in class. Not so in college. You may have classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and have no classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or vice versa. Or you may not have a class until 12 in the afternoon, or you may have an 8 o'clock class. Just depends on what your classes are. So you're going to have to keep track of things like that you didn't have to keep track of in high school. We get to frequency of exams or quizzes. Oftentimes in high school, you'll have quizzes maybe every week, maybe every day, tests pretty frequently. In college, it's not necessarily that way. And what we're finding now too is that a lot of professors are not giving tests in the traditional way anymore, primarily because of the way we're delivering education right now. We don't always have all the students in front of us. So instead of exams, you may find that you're going to have papers or presentations or projects or things like that. To get over here to the last column, academic standards. Each school or each school system typically posts and creates what they deem their academic standards, the minimum things you have to do to pass from grade to grade. In college, you typically need a certain GPA to stay in good academic standing. And in college too, if you're not in good academic standing, the college does have the option of asking you not to come back. Whereas in high school, they don't have that option. So you really need to keep track of your grades, keep track of your assignments, and stay in good academic standing.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between disability services in high school and in college. So this slide, I'm going to cover high school, and then I'll move on to college on the second slide. So when we think about disability services in high school, you have your IEP or maybe your 504 plan, and that might include your contact information, your disability diagnoses, maybe some evaluation results from the school or from your doctor, the different services and accommodations you plan to utilize, strategies to aid in your success, your grades, your schedule. Lots of information is included on there. In high school, teachers may modify the curriculum, alter the curriculum pace of assignments, or grant modifications to test format or grading as an accommodation. So these are common accommodations that you might see on your IEP or 504 plan in high school, among many other things. In high school, students with disabilities are often identified and supported by the school, their families, teachers, and accommodations are often arranged by the school. So a lot of times, when you're in high school, the school might notice that you could have a disability. They help you with testing and documentation, and then they help arrange those accommodations for you, usually in partnership with some of maybe your teachers, your family members, and hopefully you're involved in those meetings as well. And finally, your families and teachers work together to determine those accommodations and renew them each year. So typically you'll have that yearly meeting to renew your 504 or your IEP. And hopefully you're involved in that meeting, but sometimes it's just the school kind of making that plan for you and implementing it for you. So thinking about those things and then comparing to disability services in college. So when we get to college, your accommodation letter is not any longer called an IEP or a 504, and it might be called something different at every college you research. So when you're at different disability services offices, they might call their accommodation letter, they might have a name for it. At some places, some might just call it an accommodation letter, but it's not going to be called an IEP or 504 anymore. That letter will likely only include your contact information and your accommodations, not nearly as much information as high school, because your professors in college don't need to know that information. They don't need your diagnoses. They don't need all that information about your grades, your schedule. They just need to know what accommodations you receive. In college, accommodations can't compromise the academic integrity of the class. So those accommodations I mentioned earlier, like modifying course design, altering assignments, workload, or altering the testing requirements, maybe a testing format, those aren't reasonable accommodations at the college level because you're still expected to meet the same academic standards as every student. Changes to the grading scale is another great example that will not happen in college. In college, you have to self-identify with the Disability Services Office to receive accommodations. This is one of the biggest things I like to tell students who are incoming is that your disability status doesn't automatically follow you to college. So when you get to whatever college you decide to go to, they won't know that you have a disability. Even if you used accommodations for 12 years, through K-12, it doesn't necessarily mean that the college will know. Even if you mention it in your application, that doesn't mean that the Disability Services Office will know. So you'll have to identify with them and get your accommodations through that new disability services process. Another important piece is that you must advocate for yourself to receive accommodations from the school and from your instructors. So you're going to have a lot more responsibility, likely than you did in high school, to be talking with the Disability Services Office, to be talking with your professors and coordinating the accommodations that you need. Your family won't have access to your educational or disability records without your consent. So typically you'll be doing that on your own rather than family members and teachers helping with that implementation. And finally, every college has a different level of support from the Disability Services Office. So that's a great question to ask, what kind of support they give.
Sorry, had to unmute. So free versus fee-based services. Not all services are free or part of your tuition. There are basic services that the Americans with Disabilities Act mandates. So anything that is going to provide access to your education, but anything over and above that is at the discretion of the school. So some of the examples are tutoring or supplemental instruction, summer programming, campus transportation. So when you are looking at schools, ask if there are fee-based services. There are many schools that have accommodations. There are many schools that have accommodations plus fee-based services. So make sure you ask. Also, some of the schools that do have fee-based services have a sliding scale. They have almost an a la carte type of option. So based on what you need, you may be able to pick and choose which services that you want. Not all schools have that, but definite questions to ask. Okay, Loras College. Loras College is in Dubuque, Iowa, which is about 150 miles north and west of Chicago. It's a pretty quick, easy drive from Chicago to Dubuque, Iowa. We're a small Catholic liberal arts institution. We have about 1,500 students, very small classes, 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio. We do focus on experiential learning. We actually have an office of experiential learning. We want students out in the community. A little bit more than 83% of our students graduate in 4 years, which is awesome. We also just this year started test optional in terms of admission. So our basic admission is a 2.5 GPA and a 20 ACT. If you have a 3.0 GPA, then it is test optional. You do not have to take the ACT or the SAT. There's no essay involved and there's no application fee. Our acceptance awards for financial aid are between, on average, $16,000 and $20,000 a year. We have early acceptance and early FAFSA awards, and we also have additional program-based scholarships. And now, specifically about our programming, the Lynch Learning Center has been providing services for students since about 1986. Accommodations, like any other school, are free of charge. Extended time on testing, testing in a distraction-reduced environment, alternative formats, assistive technology. We use Read and Write Gold. Many others use Kurzweil or other things like that. We also issue smart pens for students instead of note takers, and we have other things based on your diagnosis. We are one of the schools that not only offer accommodations, but we also have 2 additional fee-based programs. The first is the enhanced program. The enhanced program we began in 1986, so we've had a good record. We were not the first program in the country. We were one of the first. It includes a one-on-one advisor in our office, kind of like a case manager that students meet with once a week. We have program-based curriculum for 4 years for students, starting out with academic support, moving into more postgraduate support. We also have tutoring, workshops every week. There are study tables, supplemental instruction, and the enhanced program is primarily based on students who need support due to a learning disability or ADD. We have a newer program, the ARCH program, which is designed primarily for students with autism spectrum disorders, based primarily on what we learned in the enhanced program, but we have a more specific program for students on the spectrum, because what we found was that the students were doing really well in our enhanced program academically, but the students with autism spectrum disorders needed different types of supports, and they were graduating, and they had great GPAs, but once they graduated from college, they couldn't find a job or they couldn't keep a job. So the ARCH program has all of the same components as the enhanced program, but then with a little bit more opportunities for students. So first and foremost, students are able to have a single room if they'd like, so that they don't have to, deal with roommates and all those sorts of issues, because for some students, it just takes everything they have just to get through the day. They want to go back to their room. We have a 1-week transition program in the summer to get students acclimated to the campus. We have a sensory room in the res hall that only students in the ARCH program have access to. Have a bridge program as well before the start of the school year. Also academic programming that goes along with the program all 4 years. All of our staff members are certified autism specialists. So everybody has extensive training in working with students on the spectrum.
All right, so I want to tell you all a bit about Michigan State University. You can see that background image there. That's our Sparty statue, and the stadium is there in the background, so you can get a little taste of our campus. Our website is listed there too, msu.edu, where you can learn a lot of information about campus and just everything about all the academic programs. So MSU at a glance, we have 200 plus areas of study. We have a 16-to-1 student to faculty ratio. Doesn't necessarily mean all your classes will be 16 or less people. There are some very large classes, there are some very small classes, and everything in between. We have a 95% job placement rate after graduation, and we have 500,001 alumni worldwide. We are a large school, so it's something to keep in mind if you're thinking about coming to Michigan State. We're part of the Big Ten Conference, and we currently have 49,809 students. But you can always expect it to be around that 50,000 mark, so it's a large campus. For admissions, you need to apply by November 1st for maximum scholarship consideration, and there are 3 ways to apply. The classic MSU application. You can utilize the Common App now for Michigan State, and there's also the Coalition application. In new for fall 2021, we are going to be test optional for freshman applicants. So you have the option to apply without submitting your ACT or SAT score. On the other side of the slide here, I have the MSU Office of Admissions website, admissions.msu.edu. So I'd invite you to go there to learn about the process. I also linked the admissions process for freshmen page, which you can easily find on the admissions website. And here, if you want to snap a photo of this slide, I have the 2 contacts for the Illinois Office of Admissions contacts, their names and emails, and then their recruitment territory, so you know who to contact if you have questions about admissions to MSU. So here's the big thing I wanted to talk about is disability services at Michigan State. You can see our logo there for the Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities. On the screen, it's a tree and the trunk is 2 hands holding together. You'll notice that all around the office if you do come to visit us. So like I said, we are the Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities, or RCPD, and we're the Disability Services Office for Michigan State, serving students and employees with disabilities. So you can see our website there. There's a ton of information. We just revamped the website over the past 1.5 years. So there's a lot of good information there. It's rcpd.msu.edu. And I wanted to share a little bit about registration, and this is probably similar to a lot of colleges' registration process. So you'll make contact with us through our website or through email. You provide us documentation, and then you meet with your specialist to get registered. So like I said earlier, that disability or the IEP 504 doesn't automatically follow you to college. You'll have to go through that process. And I linked there our Get Started page, which has information about how to get started with our CPD. When you register, you're matched with an ability access specialist, just kind of our name for the advisors that work at the office. And each has an expertise area. So you'll be assigned someone who works specifically with your disability diagnosis. So I work with students with learning disabilities and ADHD and co-occurring conditions. So if you have one of those diagnoses, you might work with me, but we also have a variety of other specialists in other areas. So thinking about what we offer, what I want to talk about the most, obviously accommodations and support for implementing those, similar to what Lynn was talking about at Loris. We have scholarships through our office specifically for RCPD students and awards, and we offer those, or rather celebrate those, at an annual reception every year. We have signature programs for various disability categories and class levels. So we do have a program specifically for students with learning disabilities and ADHD, providing some academic support, tutoring, mentoring, and things along those lines. We also have a program for students with autism that includes a freshman seminar, a transitions program to come to campus early, lots of different social events, and just lots of fun things going on throughout the year for our students. There's a few other things going on there. We also have career services in our office, support with assistive technology, so different technologies like Lynn also mentioned, smart pens. We use Kurzweil 3000 for text to speech. So we have a lot of things. I would invite you to look at our website. All of our programming is free. It's not fee-based. So I'd invite you to look there. And our contact information is on that link that I also linked here. You can see our whole team. You can see their specialty areas. And then you can email them directly or get an appointment scheduled with them to ask all of your questions about coming to MSU.
All right, well, now let's talk a little bit about UW-Whitewater before we continue talking about the purpose of our presentation. So some unique features of our Warhawk family, just that general makeup of who we are. We are classified as a mid-sized public institution, and we do actually have 2 campuses. So you'll see a map in front of you in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. We are situated in South Central Wisconsin, so a pretty even distance to and from the Illinois region, whether that's the Northern Illinois region around Rockford, maybe around the Chicagoland region, definitely accessible via driving, which is always great. But across those 2 campuses, being classified as a mid-sized institution, you're going to meet all different types of students. And this is certainly a strong purpose for us as an institution, not only to be matched well with creating access for students who may be utilizing accommodations, but access to education for all of our students. So you are no different than the rest of the student population in their access to education. Some other key identifiers for us, we are an NCAA Division III institution. So if you're thinking about continuing your athletic experience, certainly think about that. And recently we were recognized by the Colleges of Distinction for our dedication, both inside and outside of our classroom, our standard of teaching, and all of the excellence that's been received thereafter students graduate. So some additional unique features about campus definitely encompasses some of our academic features. One, we were founded as a teacher's college. So if you're thinking about continuing your, or if you're thinking about becoming a teacher, this would definitely be a great institution for you, as we still graduate the most licensed teachers in the state of Wisconsin. Additionally, we have the largest college of business in the state of Wisconsin as well. So those are certainly matched interests, but our interests spread far and wide beyond education and business. In this middle column on the very bottom, you'll see we have some specialty programs like marine biology, communication sciences and disorders, social work, media arts and game design, and much more. So there truly are so many different opportunities. Some recent accolades that we've received, and I'm going to talk about some more accolades on the next slide about our Center for Students with Disabilities, but in regards to the general campus, we were recently named the safest college campus in the state of Wisconsin. This is huge. Safety today is such a popular topic of conversation and at the forefront of everybody's brains when you're thinking about going out in society, not only just in a college. So we definitely want to hit the ground running and letting you know that we've been practicing safety for many years. We just now have the title to support our efforts. Additionally, in regards to value and cost, we know that college isn't free, it's not cheap, and we want to make sure that we give you the best bang for your buck, if you will. And so being named the best value in the UW system has certainly allowed for us to maintain a low cost, provide scholarship opportunities, include things like textbooks and laundry, tutoring, Wi-Fi, all of that great amenities in your educational experience. Now for some fall 2021 updates, as the other campuses had shared, which is so important, we want to be just as accommodating to all of you students in a very different educational environment right now. We recognize that. And so right now, currently UW-Whitewater is running an incentive that you can apply at no cost through the end of the month. So there is no application fee associated with your app if you apply now before October 31st. So if you haven't already, I definitely encourage you to do so. And additionally, we are test optional for scholarships. This is huge, especially all of you Illinois students. We are definitely here for you and not being able to take the SAT in April. And I know that those tests keep getting canceled. So we definitely are trying our best to be accommodating. So no test requirements for those scholarship opportunities. And then that following information kind of explains those out-of-state scholarships for our non-resident students, specific to new freshmen. So between $1,000 to $4,000, or to be eligible for that Midwest Student Exchange program. So that's all the great general information that we want to discuss, but I certainly wouldn't be doing my part if I didn't explain our amazing Center for Students with Disabilities, or CSD. CSD has a lot of recognition for the longstanding tradition of excellence that it has matched on our campus. So much so we are recognized as the flagship campus in the state of Wisconsin for serving students who utilize academic or living accommodations while in college, Currently, we serve over 1,000 students across both campuses. Again, if you are a student who attends our Rock County campus, you are also eligible to use services in our Center for Students with Disabilities. And that being recognized as the flagship, we've definitely been trying to work our way up in the ranks across the entire United States. And so we were recently named 17 of 50 best disability-friendly colleges and universities. So we're really trying our hardest to create and maintain that, again, tradition of excellence for creating access to education across the board. As Lynn and Kelsey both mentioned, these accommodations are certainly what we are going to offer in the mandated route, right? Extended test time, quiet spaces. We do have technology assistive services as well, like Cruisewhile, smart pens, notepads, everything of the sort. We also have those fee-based services, like our Project Assist is one-on-one tutoring, not only for subject area, but also personal skills, personal traits, like organization and time management skills, as well as having our summer transition program, which is a bridge program that takes along the month of July before you would enroll in the fall semester. So there is a separate application process for services. Once you apply for admission, you can certainly then submit an application for services and work one-on-one with one of our disability service coordinators, or DSCs, and have an appropriate intake meeting to discuss those eligible accommodations. You may use accommodations, you may have this meeting and never use your accommodations. It truly is up to you, and that's the beauty of college, is this is your experience and you make of it what you will. You're an adult, you are making those choices, and we want to put those things in place for you. So our purpose behind sharing our institutions, not only because we are presenting today, but we also wanted to really give some physical explanation of a big school, a medium-sized school, and a small school, and what they can provide to students. And if my determination here would be that we all are going to go above and beyond for our students. We're going to make sure that you are going to have an excellent college experience if you choose our institutions or wherever you may be at. We hope that you have gotten that from our presentations on our specific institutions, but now we want to talk about how you're preparing for all of these great opportunities and accommodations. One was mentioned earlier, advocacy. Start practicing those independence. If you can remove modifications from your IEP or 504 plan, we so encourage that. Practicing your independence on asking for help or emailing a teacher when you need some of that additional assistance, that would be so great in your preparation for that college. This one sounds very straightforward and kind of silly, but it definitely goes without saying that you need to learn how to study. As Len had talked about, you're going to have very unstructured time in college, and it's only that much more important that you match the time in the classroom outside of the classroom studying as well. So preparing yourself for things like that. Get to know the functional limitations of your disabilities. So you are going to be on your own in that college environment to an extent, but really being able to understand, you know, where am I most needing assistance? What can I know that I can do on my own? Those are certainly things to practice. Again, practicing advocacy, asking for help. We're gonna keep mentioning that as much as we can, because we have seen so much success in the students that we all work with, of the student who does go and ask for help and ask for that additional assistance to do great things. Organizational tools. I'm just as guilty of this. If I don't have a planner, if I don't have reminders on my phone, I certainly lose track of what's happening in my day. So if you're not already using these tools, start. It's such an easy way to keep yourself on track and on pace, and it makes it for a smooth sailing in regards to your educational experience. Connecting with vocational rehab services in your county is only of value to you and your families or support systems through your college experience, so that you can get any assistive measures in regards to finances or technology pieces covered in your college experience would be certainly important as well. So this last slide, we were discussing how we wanted to wrap things up, and one of the things that we wanted to provide to you was, as you're going on to these college experiences, whether it be a visit, a virtual meetup, one-on-one conversations with either a counselor in a disabilities office, wherever that may be. Having a list of questions, one, prepares you for what you're getting into, but also helps you just organize what the questions, a very overwhelming experience it can certainly be. So I, one, encourage you to take a picture of this page, take a screenshot, save it somewhere, copy and paste it into Word, and start your list of questions that you would ask other institutions. Where's your support office? What levels of support does your office provide? Who will be responsible for sending my accommodation letter? How big are your classes? Who do I contact? This list will grow. You will certainly have answers for many different institutions depending on how you're looking at them. But having this list of questions is going to help in that organization of finding the right institution for you and those accommodations that you may use. So I certainly hope that I've given enough time here to take a quick picture, but I'm going to go on to our last page here. This is our contact information. Again, another great page to take a screenshot, take a picture. We want to hear from you. We hope you want to hear from us. We hope that this has been informational for you as well, so that we can assist you in this, again, very exciting process. It certainly is such a joy to go to college, and not everybody does it. So don't think that this is just something you have to do. It certainly is such a joy for you to be able to and have this as an opportunity. But I will invite the other two ladies to turn their microphones back on, and let's see if we got any questions. If anybody wants to ask any questions while we've got about 9 minutes left. I will keep this up for a little bit, but if we had a question come in, does someone want to ask it?
Yeah, I can put one. So someone asked if the slides will be available after the presentation. I thought probably everyone watching wants to know that. If you do want a copy of the slide deck, you're welcome to email one or all of us, and we'd be happy to send this information to you so you can access all the links, email addresses, information in a bit of an easier format than just seeing it on the screen.
And this is being recorded, so you can actually access all recorded presentations from IACAC with StriveScan on the IACAC webpage, I believe. And I'm sure our StriveScan assistant will go over that once we're done. That's a great question, though. I definitely understand wanting printed information in front of you, because just listening to it is certainly hard to.
There was another question too, asking if trade schools were included in this. And trade schools absolutely are included in terms of providing accommodations to access the education. It might look a little bit different depending on what your classes look like, but yes, absolutely. If you're looking at a trade school, or if you're looking at a community college, definitely talk to the Disability Services Office, because they are going to provide very similar accommodations, but just make sure, you know, as you're looking at them, ask the questions that pertain to you.
Also a great question. All right, I will stop sharing my screen so I can see the Q&A as well. Awesome, okay. So yeah, feel free if anybody wants to ask any more questions. We are definitely here for your assistance in any way, shape, or form. Does anybody have any last piece of advice in regards to your student's college search, and as it relates to transitioning to college with a disability that they would like to share?
I can go in on that. Minus the advocacy piece and the learning about your disability piece that we've already really hit home about. When you're visiting campuses, go ahead and schedule an appointment with someone at the Disability Services Office. You know, we're typically very happy to meet with you and just talk about what the level of support looks like. Like you've seen just in our presentation, you know, we're only 3 colleges and we all have very different programs. Lots of similarities, but some differences. So going and meeting the advisors at the Disability Services Office, seeing their space can really help with that decision-making process and figuring out where you might go.
That's great advice. That's great
Mhm.
advice. I'm going to also add, before you make your final decision on your college, spend the night. Spend the night at several schools if you're able to. Sit in on classes if you're able to. You may think that you have your heart set on a school, and you may spend the night and think, ugh, no. And conversely, you may think that there's a school that you really, it was your third or fourth or fifth choice. But once you spend the night and sit in on a class, you think, wow, I can see myself here for 4 years. So if you're able to do that, spend the night.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a plug just to the admissions piece of all of this is it's very important to connect with somebody in a support office. It is also very important to stay in touch with your admissions counselor so that you can stay in line with those next steps, as they typically for every institution will open up throughout the year. So we definitely want to keep you organized as much as you're trying to stay organized with all of the institutions you may be considering, whether it's 2 of them or it's 5 of them. We definitely want to be as assistive as possible. We had another. Yeah, go ahead.
There was another question that came through in terms of when's the best time to start searching. It's never too early. Certainly don't wait until you're a senior, but it's not too early to start as a sophomore or a freshman, or even 8th grade. There's a lot of students that come through for visits that we meet with that are in 8th grade or freshmen. So it's never too early. It's never too late, but the earlier the better, because you'll have time to actually compare schools that you visit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to say. It's really about when you're able to start now. Depending on what year you are in school, but let's say, the typical start time is your junior year, right? That doesn't mean that if you're starting earlier than that, that's bad. If you're starting later than that, that's bad. Everything is fine. But, the standard stereotypical start time is junior year. You're able to process and really decompress on information when you're starting earlier in your high school career. And something I like to know as far as now goes, just because COVID has certainly changed a lot. I would just know that things are subject to change in regards to processing. Services are not going to change. That it's just simply applying for those services or things like that. Those won't change. But certain admissions pieces, scholarship pieces, test score requirements, placement testing requirements, that all may be subject to change just because. So I would think in the world of COVID, what has altered because of this. But other than that, starting earlier in your high school career is always better because there's so many choices. I mean, the 3 of us here, we're all from a different state, completely different state. So if you're even thinking about the state of Illinois, there's so many institutions to choose from, and you have 3 schools who are not even from Illinois. So I would definitely keep that in mind. There's so many places to look and choose from and research and all of that. So that's definitely, yes, starting earlier is great. You can't make any formal commitments at this time, but until you're senior. So that's what I would look.
We had one other question come in that I can answer quickly. It says, given COVID, are in-person visits being offered? So that's going to vary by the institution, and honestly, it has been varying by the week or month on whether they're giving in-person tours. I know MSU tours were not offering in-person for quite a while. I believe that's still the case. Could be wrong. But looking at, whatever department's offering tours, just reaching out to maybe your admissions counselor to see if those are happening. It's always going to be kind of a right now answer, and then in a week, we're not sure.
Yeah. Your rule of thumb there for campus tours, most, if not all, smaller institutions like Loris are providing in-campus tours. And I would say it's about a 70-40 split for the medium-sized institutions that are providing on in-person visits. And then larger institutions, especially those within Big Ten, are not providing tours. So UW-Whitewater is having them, Loris is having them in regards to this presentation specifically, and I would check out our respective web pages for those visits. But I think
thank you all so much for joining us, Amy, Lynn, and Kelsey. All of you who join us as participants, You know how difficult this is in a remote world because we can't see you. We don't get the feedback. We don't get the best part of our jobs is interacting with you, and we miss you. So right now, can you give these three folks some good vibes? Send them some remote good vibes from wherever you are. Tell them thank you for providing this excellent information to you, our Illinois students. Thank you for joining us. If you'll please stick around for just a few moments, there's a quick 4-question survey. We would sure like your feedback on this. Please sign up for more sessions at IACAC.org. A recording of this session and all sessions will be available. Thank you all very much for joining us.